Hey guys, what's up? It's Ravi here, and we're doing another episode of the Off My Chest podcast. Today we're going to be talking about the latest UFC event, UFC 229, which just took place yesterday as of recording this episode, and all the crazy shenanigans that went down there. So, as you may have seen, there was a whole Conor Khabib fight, which just devolved into chaos after. But we're going to start at the top of the card and work our way down. The first fight of the night was the women's strawweight, I believe it was, between Herrig and the Karate Hottie, and it was a good fight. I think it's gonna get overshadowed by all the other fights on the card because all the other ones were just long, drag out, knockout fights, whereas that fight was a lot more technical, went the distance, was a bit closer. Watching the fight, I had, the Karate Hottie winning the fight by pretty much one round because I felt that the second round kind of went to Herrig more, whereas then the third round was kind of up in the air, but I had it leaning towards Karate Hottie. The judges had it all three rounds unanimous, I believe it was, or it was 29-27. You know what? There's not much that can be done there. I felt that was a good it was a good fight, a good opening fight, got the crowd ready. It'll be interesting to see kind of how they play out into the next few cards in the weight class. Seeing how they are, it wasn't super eventful, but it did kind of get overshadowed. Yeah, that's really all I have to say on that fight. Next fight on the card was Derek Lewis versus Alexander Volkov. Holy crap. Going in, I didn't know who was going to win. I had a feeling Derek Lewis. I felt that Volkov might have been able to use, his height. He throws a lot more kicks than Lewis. Volkov's more of a striker, whereas Lewis is more of a brawler. Going into the fight, because in Derek Lewis's last fight against Ngannou, he was complaining about, back problems. He had said he'd been doing some treatments for it. So I was skeptical about how he would respond if, the back issues, if his cardio, how does this land him in regards to Volkov? Volkov fought a really smart fight. He rocked Lewis a lot of times. Lewis, that chin is on him is just absolutely amazing. He's, been in so many fights for so long. There was so many times in the fight that I thought he was going to get knocked out, but he stood his ground. Last 10 seconds, knocked out Volkov with a huge punch, and then vicious ground and pound to win it. Best post-fight interview of the night. Taking off his shorts because balls were hot. That was pretty entertaining. All in all, this one really brought the crowd into it. I thought the card in general was a really solid card. There was enough time between most of the fights so that, the crowd could get a bit of a rest so that they could get, hyped for the next fight and the next big moment so that they weren't drained for the main event. The Derek Lewis fight, if anybody wants to see a huge, just brawling, vicious knockout at heavyweight, this is a fight to watch. Then we had the Ovince St. Preux, OSP, going up against Dominic Reyes. Dominic Reyes fought a smart fight, kept it standing, lots of quick shots. OSP tried to take it to the ground a couple times. Dominic Reyes didn't want it to. He controlled the whole fight. I personally thought OSP was going to win. I thought he was going to do better, but I was kind of disappointed by how he did. But I was very impressed with Dominic Reyes coming in, beating OSP. I think Dominic Reyes is going to move up the division quite a few spots. Maybe he might challenge for a title within year and a half, I think. Going off, his record and where he's going to be in the division, because coming into this fight, he was ranked number 12. I could see them putting him, maybe rank 8-ish, 7, 8. Maybe next fight, he moves up a bit more. And then you could see, he's got this big win streak behind him, undefeated. Then you could put him up in a title shot. After that, we had Tony Ferguson up against Anthony Pettis. And this was probably the fight that, other than the Khabib Conor fight, this fight right here on it by itself could have been a main event. Tony Ferguson coming off his injury, first fight back, he had a lot to prove because he got stripped of the lightweight belt. So this fight right here of Tony, he ended up winning, but going in, they were like, it was if he wins, he can challenge the winner of Khabib Conor, because right now he's number 2 ranked, right behind Conor, who's the number 1 ranked, which we'll get into that later. But I think Tony's got the best argument for the next title shot. The fight was overall very well. Some good ground game, some good stand-up. Absolute massacre. First round, Anthony Pettis testing the leg. The leg seemed to be, a little bruised. Ferguson was kind of limping on it a little bit, is what I noticed. So, but then again, first fight back, he's still got to get used to his surgery. Then we had Anthony Pettis. He rocked Tony in the second round, and Tony did a nice roll and then, pulled Anthony into guard, But as soon as they came down into guard, Tony Ferguson was just bleeding out of his face. And it went from, no blood to like, oh my God, the blood in about 10 seconds. It was absolutely crazy. And then, Tony Ferguson got back up to the feet. Anthony Pettis was bleeding too from a couple of shots on the ground. He had a huge cut right on his hairline. So then, you know what? Props to the referee who was doing that fight. I forget what his name was. I think it was Jason Herzog. He waited until neither one had an advantage. They were both standing up at a distance. Neither one was throwing anything. Once they got up, and then he, timed out, made sure, cleaned the blood off their face quickly, made sure, those cuts were dealt with. Probably all in all, I think it took 5-10 seconds maybe. Perfect amount of time. Just wipe the face, make sure they can see so that they can defend themselves properly. Loved it, respect. End of the second round in the intermission, the coach of Anthony Pettis was like, yeah, I broke my hand. Coach is like, well, can you throw the same punches or can you not? Because, this was an all-out drag-out brawl. If Anthony Pettis, his hand is broken as bad as they said it was, definitely it was a good decision to pull him out of the fight and just stop it there, because Ferguson would have teed off on him without the use of that hand. He would have just looked at every moment that Anthony started, trying to throw something with his other hand, time it, and then just go in. So I think, smart decision by the corner, not forcing Pettis to fight anymore through the pain. Tony Ferguson, great fight back. I think he's got an argument for the next title shot here. Stripped of the belt, wins his first fight back against Anthony Pettis. I would love to see a rematch of this fight later down in the road, a couple months, a year. But there's a couple more fights I'd like to see Anthony Pettis and Tony Ferguson fight before they get this rematch. And now we're at the main event. The main event that everybody loves so much. Khabib Conor, what can be said about it? It was, you know what, I'm be honest here. I'm biased to Khabib. I love Khabib. He's awesome. He does a style that I enjoy. I like to see him just absolutely smother his opponent. Not a fan of McGregor's trash talking, to be honest. I think he overdoes it. I don't think he should have gotten the title shot after what happened in New York, the whole Dolly incident. But you know what? I'm not the matchmaker, and he did get stripped of the title, so you know what? I can see it. Khabib dominated most of the rounds. I looked up what the judges had. Judges had him winning 2 of the 3 rounds, I believe it was. I think it was 29-27 they had it scored through the 3 rounds. That ended up being scored before the submission in the 4th. I had it 2 rounds to 1, but I had Khabib in the second round winning 10-8. I thought he absolutely dominated Conor. He got the knockdown, controlled him on the ground. I had Conor win the 3rd round 10-9, but 3rd round could go either way, in my opinion. I thought it was close enough. Khabib proving why that ground and pound is dominant, why he's 27-0, why he's the champ. The post-fight stuff, you know what, that's There's no way to justify it. I saw the statement that Khabib read. You know what? I understand where he's coming from. The problem is that he's not like McGregor. McGregor can get away with that stuff. Khabib can't. And you know what? Going into the fight, everyone was like, you know what? Khabib's a calm and composed guy. Conor destroys guys verbally. It'll be interesting. And you know what? Watching the press conferences, Khabib seemed a little on edge, but he didn't seem too concerned. He kept his calm, he kept his cool, kept composed, and then that translated to the fight. And I think all of that at the end was just his emotions were super high. He, all the stuff about his religion, about his country, about his family, about his teammates, the Dolly incident, all that stuff, I think that all just came to a head. And you know what? He did something. It'll be interesting to see what happens now, where they'll go from here, whether he is just fined, if his pay gets, held, suspensions, whatever it happens to be. I feel if he gets suspended for a long period of time, they may vacate the title. They might just strip him of it. It'll be interesting to see if the commission changes it from a loss to a no contest, if they disqualify him because of it, and then hold the title vacant. Either way, I personally don't think Conor should get another shot at it. He tapped out in the 4th round. You can't say it was a flash knockdown like a fluke. You can't say it was, judge's decision. He tapped out in the 4th round. There's not much that can be said, and he was dominated for most of the fight. He was losing the fight on the cards. He was losing the 4th round, which means 5th round he would have had to get a knockout anyways, or submission, to win the match if it went to the card. So I don't think he should get the rematch if it's going to if they vacate the title. Personally, the way they got the lightweight division set up, you don't really have a good fight for the next few months, because Ferguson should get the next shot. No questions about it. He should fight whoever has the title. If it's vacant, you really got 2 options for Ferguson. You got him fighting either Poirier, or you got him fighting Alvarez. And, Alvarez lost to Poirier in Alvarez's last fight, so you're favoring Poirier, but Poirier's fighting number 3 ranked Poirier is fighting number 10 ranked Diaz next month in November on 230. So if he loses, now Diaz can say, well, I beat Poirier and Poirier beat Alvarez. They're both in the top 5, so I should get the next shot at the title. So I could see, if Poirier loses, I could see Ferguson Diaz or Ferguson Poirier, with the winner of that fight fighting Diaz, or having Ferguson Poirier and then have Conor Diaz 3. Winner of that fight fights the winner of Ferguson Poirier, and I think that's the best the UFC will do if they strip Khabib of the belt, for now at least. But then again, you can't really have Conor fighting for the title right away, because if he wins the title, then everybody's, especially if he gets the next title shot, if they vacate the title, they put Conor in the match against Ferguson or whoever, and then Conor wins, it'll be the same thing as Jon Jones, Daniel Cormier, in my opinion. Daniel Cormier loses to Jon Jones by knockout. Jon Jones gets suspended because of his positive test. Daniel gets the belt back, and then Daniel defends it. Well, everybody's like, but you lost, so you're not the true champ. Jon Jones is the true champ, which, if you cheated, I don't think you're the true champ. That's my opinion. But Conor, you got submitted by this guy. Yeah, he's suspended, but you tapped out and you were being dominated. So if you're the champ, you're not really the champ. There's a guy who's better than you, who's out on the sidelines right now. And if, whatever happened, then, if it hadn't happened, he would still be the champ right now. You would not be the champ, and you wouldn't even be fighting for the title right now. So my personal opinion is you can't have Conor fight for the title right away. I'd say have Conor Diaz 3 or Connor Ferguson or whatever you want to have. If he wants to move up to welterweight, do whatever the fuck he wants. He's an idiot anyways. But you know what? He can do what he wants, and they're gonna let him do what he wants. But I really don't think that he can fight for the title without making the division not seem legit, without seeming like a paper champion, just like DC seemed to a lot of John Jones fans. So that's the future of the lightweight division, in my opinion. I think next fight you have Tony Poirier if the belt gets vacated. If not, Khabib Tony is obvious fight. Heavyweight division, Derek Lewis, number 2 ranked, big knockout. Volkov, in his own words, he's not ready for a 5-round fight against DC. But this is what I'd have: DC versus Brock Lesnar, which is already going to happen. On that card too, co-main event, Stipe Miocic versus Derek Lewis, given that Derek Lewis's back holds up and that he's not still injured. You have those two for the number 1 spot. So whoever wins DC Lesnar fights the winner of Stipe Derek Lewis. And I know a lot of people are going to be like, oh, well, what about Curtis Blades or Francis Ngannou? Francis Ngannou's already lost to Stipe Miocic. So, in my opinion, Ngannou's not ready. Curtis Blades, you know what? If he loses to Ngannou, no. If he beats Ngannou, possibly, but still, I still think that you got Miocic, who should get a rematch to whoever wins Cormier Lesnar. Derek Lewis has, an argument now, so I'd have Derek Lewis, Stipe Miocic on whatever UFC card it is in January, again, in co-main event. And you can even have that fight 5 rounds if you want to test it. Probably it would only be 3. Then you have DC versus Lesnar on that same card at 5 rounds for the belt. Winners of the 2 matches fight off, and then you can keep the division going. Next up, we're going to talk about UFC 230 and what's going on. So like I said, we got Poirier Diaz in the co-main event. So they're the second to last match on the card, which that's a huge fight. Diaz is fight back. He's fighting the number 3 ranked lightweight. So if he beats Poirier, he could argue for a title shot right now. Right off coming back. But the whole controversy there, and the biggest part about UFC 230 is that there's no main event, and you're a month out from the card, and nothing got shown on UFC 229. Nothing's been talked about. They're talking about maybe John Jones, but John Jones apparently doesn't want to fight Gustafsson right now. He says it's too close to when he comes back, because we're going to get into John Jones later, but, he's just coming back. He said, nope, not ready for Gustafsson. We'll do it another time for, interim bout or something. So, okay, fair enough. But who's going to main event this card? Because you have to have a fight bigger than Poirier Diaz, unless you're going to put another fight as co-main event and bump them up to main event, which has happened before. Which has happened before on cards that had fights that pulled out. So the question becomes, what fight's bigger other than a John Jones fight? Other than John Jones Gustafsson to put in MSG, Madison Square Garden, in 1 month. There was, on the UFC website, they put Joanna and Jacek versus Rose Namajunas 3 for the strawweight, I think it is, belt. And everybody got mad. I'm like, yeah, because Namajunas beat her twice handedly. So why are you having this fight again? And that kind of confused me. So then they took it down, wrong guy, wrong person, whatever, wasn't supposed to go up. Then there comes out rumors that they have the Shevchenko fight at flyweight versus this Saraha Eubanks chick who's ranked number 4 for the vacant title at women's flyweight. But that fight doesn't seem like a fight that's bigger than Poirier Diaz. So that's not on the UFC website. So right now it says to be announced versus to be determined. The problem is what fight can they put there that's going to be bigger than Poirier Diaz, unless they move Poirier Diaz up. And even then, Poirier Diaz, not for a title, doesn't really seem like that, a true main event. There seems like there could be bigger fights. But you can't have Namajunas, really, because nobody's really shown themselves out to be number one contender. I guess, Amanda Nunes doesn't want to fight yet because she's going after Chris Cyborg. That big fight, whether Cyborg's coming down to bantamweight, which I think is unlikely. I think it's going to be Nunes going up to featherweight. So who are you going to have? I guess you could... The only real fight that makes sense is DC, or not DC, Gustafsson versus John Jones. But that doesn't want to happen. They're talking about having, in middleweight, have Yoel Romero go up and fight Gustafsson. Which, yeah, that seems like a good fight, but it kind of comes out of left field. Why would Yoel Romero want to go up to and fight Gustafsson when he can wait and fight Whitaker? Or Rockhold, or Weidman, any of these guys. Why would they, or Jacare, or Gastelum, why would they want to move up and fight Gustafsson when they can just wait for Whitaker? Which, I think Whitaker's almost healed now. And, there's not really any other cards. I'm looking at the rankings, and there's not really much that you can put that the champion isn't injured, or there's, other exterminating circumstances. So we're going to have to wait and see who they put, if they put anybody ahead of Poirier Diaz, or if they just bump Poirier Diaz up and put someone in underneath him. In which case I could see that championship, that strawweight championship being put in. Lastly, we're going to talk about John Jones. The disappointment that is John Jones. I feel like John Jones fans are just, he keeps fucking up, and they keep wanting him back, and they keep forgiving him, and they keep forgiving him after he's fucked up 3 times now. He got the cocaine incident. He had, when he did the hit and run against the lady who was pregnant, and then he had injuring her. Then he had at UFC 200 that positive test. Now he's got the positive test that he's coming back from. So there's 4 incidents right there just in UFC that he's had. 2, I think only 2 resulted in suspensions, but still, come on, guys. You know what I mean? And every time he said it's someone else, it's someone else, it's someone else. Well, then stop associating with them. And if, everyone who's always around you is always doing this stuff, then just go out on your own. Find new stuff. Move on. Because right now, his legacy is being tarnished by all this stuff happening. And you know what? 15 months is a joke for a punishment, considering it should be between 2 and 4 years. 2 years minimum, 4 years maximum. You know what? He gives up some people's names. I could see them saying, okay, 2 years. That's what you get. You gave up some names. There's extenuating circumstances. You didn't mean to take it. 2 years. That's what you get. But 15 months? So he's ready for the next card. You can't tell me that UFC hasn't, persuaded someone to get that deal. Because that's just absolutely crazy. And it's crazy because he will come back, and then let's say he wins the title, and then test positive again. What's gonna happen? What, he gets 2.5 years now, and then comes back, and then gets another immediate title shot? Because he's not gonna fight DC unless it's DC's last fight. And even then, John Jones doesn't want to fight him. DC is kind of on the fence about fighting him, but it's neither here nor there. I personally think there's other fights DC should do. I think he should fight Brock. I think he should fight Stipe, and I think he should fight Gustafsson. That he should defend the heavyweight belt against Lesnar, and if he defend it against Stipe or Derek Lewis if you have that fight. Whatever happens there, hopefully defends the title, and then goes and fights Gustafsson or whoever the number one contender is at light heavyweight, wins there, hopefully, to defend that title. And then he can retire as, true two-division champion, defended both titles, which no one has done. Not Conor, not anyone. Conor never defended the featherweight belt. He never defended the lightweight belt. So that would be a huge thing for his legacy if DC did that. Problem is, he said, at 40 years old, I will retire. His 40th birthday is, I believe, in March. So you got the fight with Brock in January. And let's say it's, 4 or 5 months before he fights again. Maybe 6. Let's push it 6. 6 months. He fights 6 months later. So now we're looking at, July, him fighting again. So is he going to want to fight again? He said that he's wanted to do 2 more fights now. He wants to defend the light heavyweight, and he wants to defend the heavyweight belt. So, what's going to happen? Is he just going to defend the heavyweight belt against Brock, vacate it, then go to light heavyweight, defend the belt, vacate it, and then retire? Is that what he's going to do? Or is he going to defend the heavyweight belt twice and leave the light heavyweight belt? That'll be a very interesting story. But back to John Jones. John Jones, I love John Jones. He's such a good fighter. He's got devastating leg kicks. He's great submissions. He's a great striker. He's a great grappler. He's great in every aspect. The problem is, he's such a fuck up. He fucks everything up so royally that it's absolutely insane. And it physically makes me angry every time he messes up, because there's so many guys that get less respect than him that don't fuck up. Guys like Daniel Cormier, guys like Demetrius Johnson, guys like, Max Holloway, guys like, trying to think of someone else here. To some extent, Khabib. But, this whole incident with Khabib has, very tarnished that reputation. So, it's going to be very interesting to see what happens, because all these guys, Demetrius Johnson, Henry Cejudo, Max Holloway, DC Daniel Cormier, all these guys are stand-up guys outside the ring, not failing drug tests, good overall guys. Same with Brian Ortega, good overall guys. And then you have a guy like John Jones, who gets all this praise, all this respect. Guys like Conor McGregor, all this praise, all this respect, and they're fuck-ups. Like, Conor McGregor doesn't test positive. Great. But he threw Dolly through a window. That's a serious thing, because he got charged with it, and he had to go to court for it. Same with John Jones. He's gone to court multiple times over things in the past. Multiple times. So he's worse than McGregor. McGregor's not as bad, McGregor, that's part of his persona, whatever. But John Jones, how can you keep defending John Jones like this? It doesn't make sense, guys. And if anyone can, tell me why they think that John Jones is, the king of everything, other than the fact that he's a good fighter, then please tell me. Because at this point, I think that his drug tests outweigh any possibility that he has for being considered one of the greatest fighters of all time. I think it's tarnished his reputation, and I think it's tarnished his legacy too much to even be in consideration against guys like Matt Hughes, GSP, Chuck Liddell, etc. So that's all for me, guys. I hope you enjoyed this. Leave down in the comment section down below what you thought of the fight. what do you think I should talk about next? Be sure to like, subscribe this video, share it to your friends, all that jazz. And have an awesome day. I love UFC. Long live Champ Khabib.